Thank you. Chairman, I've been listening to all of my Republican colleagues throughout this hearing, and I'm still struggling to understand what high crime they believe the Secretary has committed. I've heard that he hasn't achieved operational control, defined as not a single person crossing the border illegally. No administration has met that standard. I've heard them say that he has failed to detain everyone who is undocumented who has come across the border. No administration has. Under the Biden administration, Secretary Mayorkas has removed 3 million undocumented people from this country. So when I hear my colleagues say that deportation does not exist, I can think of 3 million people who would disagree with that. He has continued construction of a border wall that many of us question the effectiveness of, and when the Secretary and the President were asked, do you think that the wall works? They say, no, we don't think it works, but we're building it because the law requires us to do it. They're following the law. We face difficult challenges at the southern border. There is no question. Instability in other countries has driven people to come to the United States, and it has created a chaotic situation. But unfortunately, rather than working with us and the President and the Secretary to address these challenges, too many of my Republican colleagues are focused more on partisan grandstanding and campaigning, including this impeachment theater. So here's the real truth. President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas have taken steps to try to secure the borders, but House Republicans have tried to obstruct them every step of the way because they want a campaign issue more than they want to fix the problem. Here are the facts. In 2022, Democrats passed and the President signed $86 billion for enhanced border security, more personnel, more funding for ICE, additional technology. 200 House Republicans voted against that funding, including every single Republican member of this committee who was in office at the time. This year, in 2023, House Republicans passed their so-called Limit, Save, Grow Act, which would have cut the Department of Homeland Security's budget by 22%, eliminating 2,400 CBP officers. Every Republican member of the House voted for that bill, a 22% cut. The Republican Limit, Save, Grow Act, I guess, is to limit Border Patrol and grow chaos. This past year, President Biden requested $84 million in his budget to help states and cities with the costs associated with incoming migrants. House Republicans proposed cutting that funding to zero. So to the state officials who are here, who are coming from states that are having challenges with the migrant crisis, I've got bad news for you. Our Republican colleagues are trying to zero out the line item in the budget to help states and cities. I'm a former state treasurer myself, and that is deeply, deeply distressing. And of course, most recently, in October, President Biden requested $14 billion in supplemental funding for border enforcement. That would add 1,300 Border Patrol agents, 1,000 CBP officers, but House Republicans have not called a vote on this funding. And they'll say, well, there's other things in it that we don't like. You know, there's a growing pro-Putin wing in the House Republican caucus that doesn't like Ukraine funding. They don't want more asylum judges, even though that's part of how we solve the problem at the border. Fine, call a vote on the parts that you do like. The CBP agents, Border Patrol. You've been sitting on it for 3 months. If you really, truly cared about solving the problem, you would call a vote. Instead, they've been sitting on it for 3 months, then went on vacation for a month, while Secretary Mayorkas was meeting with Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats to try to come up with a border plan. And House Republicans were MIA. And I know what my colleagues are going to say. They're going to say, well, we did H.R. 2. We are trying to do something. Don't forget what's in H.R. 2. All right, H.R. 2 would require nonprofit organizations to verify the citizenship of the people they were serving, or else they would risk losing their federal funding. It would request coffee shops all across the country, small businesses, to do citizenship checks of their employees. Zero out the funding for legal assistance for minors, so that once again we'd have 5-year-olds going into court and standing in front of judges with no lawyers. And we tried to negotiate with them. We tried to put in amendments to make that bill better. But of course, they wouldn't work with us. So let's not forget what's really going on here. The Secretary is trying to do his job. House Republicans have been obstructing him every step of the way and are now trying to impeach him because this is about politics for many of them. It is not about solving the problem at the border, which is what we should be doing. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize